Buongiorno da Non Solo Anima TV. Siamo al convegno Il mistero dell'esistenza umana e abbiamo il piacere di incontrare il dottor Raymond Moody, medico, docente universitario, autore di molte pubblicazioni tra cui La Vita, oltre la vita, un grande ricercatore nel mondo dei fenomeni di pre-morte. Why a phenomenon that involves us all isn't discussed normally?
By and large, people are very afraid of death, and understandably so, because it is the great unknown. From the point of view of pure reason, we just don't know what might happen when we die. And I think people are afraid of death for all sorts of reasons. Some fear the unknown. They just don't know what will happen, so that's very scary. Others associate the process of dying with pain, and they fear that it will be a very painful and agonizing process. Others fear separation from their loved ones. And some people are afraid of death because they have absorbed religious doctrines about hell and so on. They are afraid of hell. And there are also people who are simply who are afraid of death, primarily, I think, because they are very controlling people, and they want to be in control. And of course, death is the ultimate loss of control. So I think that there are all sorts of reasons why we deny this. Psychologists and psychiatrists call this denial, that we just don't want to talk about things that trouble us or make us fearful.
So, what happens after death? What is the part of us that lives the passage?
Well, of course, in the history of philosophy and theology, the part of us that leaves the body and goes presumably to some other dimension of existence is called the soul. But in reality, the soul is a very ill-defined notion. One of the great philosophical questions is, what does constitute our unique personal identity? And that, of course, is a very big and very difficult philosophical question. But whatever constitutes the personal identity, some say it's our train of memories. Others point to some other aspect of the self. But in cultures throughout the world, there is the understanding that when we die, that self, however undefinable it may be, enters into some other state of existence, sort of disappears from this material realm and goes into some other sort of existence.
You studied the near-death experience phenomenons. Can you explain to us what are they, and what does this experience mean for the people who are involved?
Yes. Well, primarily I addressed that in my book, Life After Life, which was published in 1975. And since that time, physicians all over the world have found this same phenomenon. And that is that when people come close to death, that they undergo a cardiac arrest, for example, from which they are resuscitated. They tell us that they seem to leave their physical bodies, to go through a passageway of some sort, to come out on the other side into an incredibly brilliant and warm and loving light. They tell us that relatives or friends of theirs who have passed away seem to be there almost in the role of a greeting committee to help them through this transition. They undergo panoramic memory, in which they say that all of the details of our life is displayed around us in a panorama, and we get to review everything we've ever done. And when they come back from this and are brought back to life, they tell us that their lives have been profoundly changed, and that, number one, they have no more fear of death, because their experience convinced them that what we call death is a transition into some other reality. And secondly, they tell us that the most important thing that there is that about life is to learn to love, because whatever motivated people prior to this experience, whether it was power or fame or money or any of these things that people chase, that when they come back, they say that this experience teaches them that the most important thing is to establish loving relationships with others.
Do you think that the man one day will be free of the fear of death?
I absolutely do. I do think that that developments, not exactly in science, but in scholarship in general, are headed toward a situation in which very soon, within the next few years, we will have much more established and certain information about the process of death and dying, and that this will, I do believe, greatly diminish the fear of death. And I think that this development will take place within the next 5 or 10 years.
So you're thinking that we are going through a new era?
I think that we are already in a new era and that we just haven't noticed it yet. One thing that strikes me about this current economic crisis, for example, is that so many people are assuming that, this will be over soon, or that's not going to happen. The world that we knew a few years ago no longer exists. And we are going through a transition now, which is partly represented by this economic crisis that is going to profoundly reshape our civilization in ways that we are not yet able to imagine. And so for that reason, I think that this is one of the most exciting times of history.